attention when it comes to classifying astrology as divination, which I'm willing to accept to a certain extent. But I think there's a limitation on that where there's something that sets astrology apart because it's basing itself off of objective astronomical phenomenon that are constantly occurring out there, regardless of our participation and our awareness of it, and yet is still lining up with important world events. And that element of it is different from tarot and I Ching, because tarot and I Ching, those cards and those coins are not objectively occurring out there until the moment that they are cast. So I think there's some sort of mercurial component here where there is a subjective participatory element to astrology, especially things like horary or electional astrology. And even a participatory component to some extent to natal, in this sense that we're all making choices about our lives and we're participating in the unfolding of our life and the direction of our own fate to some extent. But there's also this other component where there's something out there objectively occurring that's been coinciding with and sort of mirroring the development of events in humanity over the course of our history for thousands of years, and it can be tracked to some extent with planetary cycles. And somehow we've got to find a way to take into account both of those two things, if that's possible, in order to deal with the totality of what astrology represents.
Right.
And I don't think that mundane astrology has to be causal in order to exist or be valid. I think there can be a type of, let's say, acausal, omen-based, or at least like sign-based form of mundane astrology that can exist. I mean, in Mesopotamian astrology, that was how astrology originated in the first place, was purely in a mundane context where the celestial omens were viewed as applying to the populace or to the city as a whole, or maybe to the ruler as a representative of the
Absolutely.
city.
And looking at plagues, looking at floods.
And when you start understanding that that's what you're looking for, is these important moments of symbolic significance, then you really start to understand what you're doing, I think, a little bit more clearly than if you get into the weeds about looking for different like a causal nexus. And once you have that breakthrough that astrology isn't working through the planets like causing things to happen, but instead it's acting as signs or omens of things that are happening, then you start to think about that and delve into the nature of symbolism and what that means and how it works and how
symbolism happens.
Fluid that can be.
Symbolism just basically as the patterning of reality. It's that we experience the world through patterns. There's no way around it,
And that's where I think things get really interesting in terms of starting to lean into that conceptualization and see what you can do with it. And there's a lot of really interesting things there.
Yes, there are.